Well, welcome to the Leaders and Loggers podcast. On this week's podcast, we are live at the HR Southwest Conference, and I am joined by all these wonderful people here at the new frontier of business ethics. So join us for a glass and conversation this week. Well, welcome to the Leaders and Loggers podcast. On this week's episode, which has taken a little while for us to produce, it's for the first time that I needed an extra week on this podcast. I am the host, the producer, the editor. I do it all. And so for the first time in 102 straight weeks, I need an extra week because video has added a new complication to the podcast. As a production piece. And this week's episode, as you'll see why, took a little bit longer because there's a lot of extra video that we shot live on location while we were at the HR Southwest conference in Fort Worth just a couple of weeks ago. So the HR Southwest conference is one of the largest HR conferences in the country. It is hosted by the Texas Society for Human Resource Management and the Dallas HR chapter of Texas SHRM. And it was just so nice to be back in person for an event of that magnitude. It's like going to a family reunion that you absolutely want to go to. Some of the people that were there, either attending or speaking or running it, are dear friends and great leaders. And I hadn't seen them in 20 months. And so it was nice to hug people's necks. We did things very cautious with trying to figure out how do we navigate a world where we're still dealing with a pandemic. And so they did a very genius way of helping people navigate what was comfortable to each person with green, yellow, or red lanyards. So green meant you were open to physical touch. Yellow, you were just open to a fist bump or an elbow bump, and red was like, yeah, don't touch me. So it was great. It was a smaller event than in the past, but it was still phenomenal. And I had an amazing session talking about the new frontier business ethics, which you saw in that intro there, my audience joining in on the fun of the podcast. So if you were in my session and you're listening to this, thank you so much for doing that for me. That's the first time we've ever done that on the podcast. So it was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed what I had to say that day. So before I get in, because I shooting this off the hip really with how we filmed this, didn't intro a beer in our intro, and that's because I didn't know what we were going to be drinking, but I do know what we're drinking today, and that is the Hazy Love, Summer Hazy Love by Victory Brewing. It still feels like summer here in Texas. So, I think we're recording today and it was like 80 something degrees outside. It's, late October, but from Victory Brewing there in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, Summer Hazy Love, Hazy IPA, which I've really gotten to like the hazies with that citrus kick to it. So cheers. That's pretty good. We celebrated a lot at HR Southwest. In fact, it was the 80th anniversary of the HR Southwest conference. So this event has been going on for 80 years. And hopefully 20 years from now, when it gets to 100 episodes, 100th anniversary, I'll have the opportunity to be part of that event down the road. So, but what I did, I went around the conference networking and seeing different leaders and asking them the same question I have asked every guest I've had on the podcast at the end when we get to last call. What is one thing that you can do to be a better leader this week? And So you're going to hear from several different people, and I'm going to intro each of them, and we'll go from there. And so the first one I'm going to start with is my good friend Bruce Waller. You've heard Bruce before if you've been a part of the podcast. Bruce was our very first guest on the podcast, episode number 3, when we were live in Washington, D.C. Bruce recently just came out with his new book, Life in the Leadership Lane, which I highly recommend going to grab a copy of that book off of Amazon. And so you're gonna see this episode's gonna kind of go back and forth. So you're gonna hear me interject, come back, and whatnot. So this is a first. So we'll see how well this works. And if it works out great, then we may do more of this as we get back open to live events. And if not, this may be a one-time special deal. So here we go. So I'm here with Mr. Life in the Leadership Lane, Bruce Waller at HR Southwest. Bruce, for our listeners this week, what is one thing that they can be doing to be a better leader?
I love this question because there are so many different things we can do to be a better leader. But for me, I always start with your network is your net worth. And I got to tell you, for me in my career, to give me the most fulfillment in my career, it's been meeting and connecting with people and trying to figure out how can I be a better resource. And the more people I connect with, the more people I know, the more people I can help. And so I would say that if there's an opportunity to connect with someone, make that part of your day, make it part of your everyday, to be intentional about growing and developing your network and continuing to be a resource.
Thanks, Bruce.
You bet.
So as Bruce mentioned, your network is your net worth. I love that phrase so much because it really is the importance of having a good network. The number of opportunities that I personally have received because I've grown my network and have been a resource to others is almost countless, but it has definitely helped me land opportunities that I never would have had before. It has allowed me to meet really neat people. It's allowed me to serve many other people and just learn from so much. So, as Bruce says, be a resource, go out there and network. If you have a hard time growing your network, there's some easy things you can do. Just, whether it's on social media, whether you're attending events, just introduce yourself, find out how you can be a resource to others. Don't ask what can I get from you, but ask, how can I help you? And that goes a long way. And so Bruce, thank you for reinforcing the idea of, the importance of being a resource and being able to network. Our next video is my friend Jimmy Taylor. Jimmy is the state director for the Texas Society for Human Resource Management, which oversees like 20-something thousand members in the state. I want to say it's like 26,000 members in the state. I've been a part of Texas SHRM for about a last 4 or 5 years now. I've served in many positions as a volunteer. It is a great organization. If you're in Texas, and if you're not in Texas, if you're other states in the United States, there are state chapters, and each state has multiple local chapters you can be a part of, as well as the national membership of the Society for Human Resource Management, which is over 300,000 human resource professionals around the world. So let's take a look at what Jimmy has to say. Well, I'm here with Jimmy Taylor, State Director for Texas SHRM. And Jimmy, for leaders who are listening this week, what is something that they could be doing to encourage as a better leader?
Well, first, the easiest way, and the thing a lot of us forget to do, is just to say thank you. Thank you to their team, to their family, to the people in their company. A handwritten note, an email, a personal word as they stop by somebody's cube. But we just do not do that enough. And when leaders are stressed and their people are stressed, it becomes even more important. So that would be my comment.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jimmy.
Have a great day.
Well, thank you, Jimmy, for that. important message. And a thank you goes so far. I think we do a lot of things, and it's really nice to hear the words thank you when people recognize that you've done well. And as leaders, we need to let our teams know that we appreciate them, and a simple thank you note, it can go a long way in making their day. So great advice from Jimmy. We'll hopefully have Jimmy on for a full episode, because he is full of a lot of great knowledge, especially when it comes to organizational culture. So we'll be looking out for an opportunity to bring Jimmy on down the road. Next, you're going to meet an individual who has been a big, important influence in my life, and helped me with understanding personal values, how to navigate saying yes and saying no. And he's quite the character. And so my friend Mike Coffey, who is the president of Imperative Bulletproof Background Screening, a member of the Texas SHRM State Council, and just an overall character of humor and great insight. And so let me introduce you to Mike, and you got to check out his podcast, as we'll talk about that here in just a minute. I'm here with Mike Coffey, president of Imperative Bullet Background Screening and host of Good Morning HR podcast. Mike, for our listeners this week, what is one thing that they can be doing to be a better leader?
I think setting clear expectations that are tied to actual metrics that the company can, that move the company forward, and making sure employees understand the importance of why they do what they do, why those measurements matter, and then making sure they have the tools to do that is so much better than just kind of leaving them out there and then letting them find out in 90 days or a year what their performance looks like. So if everybody's got a number that ties back to their performance, and they're constantly getting the coaching they need to improve those numbers, that'll make for better employees and just a better company culture.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
So as Mike says, setting clear expectations, having those tied to good metrics, those are great things that leaders can be doing to help their people. I think there's a lot of conflict when it comes to the workplace, and it's all because expectations haven't been clearly set. Metrics aren't quite what they seem. It's why employees tense up around performance reviews, because they don't know what really they're being reviewed upon. And if you want to be a great leader, especially if you are managing people, make sure you set expectations and listen to the expectations that your people have of you. Don't make it a one-way street, and it will really help people in your organization, and even go beyond, setting expectations. But if you really want to be impactful with those metrics, you need to make sure that you have constant communication. So that means doing one-on-one weekly check-ins with your people, just to find out, how they're doing, how they're, where there are opportunities for them to grow, where there are opportunities that need to be corrected, and where, can you help serve them. So great things from Mike. Definitely go check out his podcast, Good Morning HR. He recently launched this a few months ago. If you have a SHRM or HRCI certification and are looking for free recertification credits, each episode for Good Morning HR is worth one half credit for SHRM and HRCI. So great resource if you are in the human resources field. So go give it a listen. You can go watch it also online. He's done a phenomenal job. And if you're also looking for someone to run background checks, Mike's company is phenomenal at that. Well, this next person is a dear friend, and we're going to have her on here in just a few weeks, as her new book, The CEOs of Networking, launches officially. And so my friend Heidi Torres, #HR Heidi, as you can find her hashtag on social media. And so it's so great to actually get to see Heidi in person. We've only been online friends as we've been a part of some of the same online networking groups and know some of the same people. So it was great to actually see her in person. And so she delivers some great advice straight from her upcoming book. Well, I am here with Heidi Torres, hashtag HR Heidi, and author of the new book, The CEOs of Networking. And Heidi, for our listeners this week, what is one thing that they can be doing to be a better leader?
Connect and follow up with those connections that they made at the SHRM. So you want to be here at the conference, you got to connect with those and follow up with them.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
So, as Heidi says, connect, whether you are in the workplace or at a conference. In order to make meaningful networking opportunities, you have to be able to connect with people, not just, hey, connect with me online, but you got to connect in real life. And so, as we'll talk more with Heidi here in a few weeks as we discuss the CEOs of networking and just some of the amazing lessons that she has been able to learn from connecting with her network and the people in there. It is going to be a great conversation, and yours truly was a part of the research for her book. So you'll have to check that out, not just because I'm in it, but there's a lot of great lessons in the book. Our next guests are two great ladies who are very much into the idea of empowering people's strengths. So we had our friends out of Lubbock come and they joined us on the podcast recently. And so you'll have to take a listen to what Leanne and Joy have to say and check out that episode here in just a second. All right, I am here with my friends Leanne and Joy from lovely Lubbock, Texas. And guns up, absolutely. So for leaders this week, what is something that they can be doing to be a better leader?
Okay, so my go-to is always going to be to ask your people how they prefer to receive praise and recognition, and then start individualizing.
That's great. And I would say do something this week for self-care. Just take a few minutes for yourself and take care of yourself.
Fantastic. Thanks, ladies. So as you heard from Leanne and Joy, as Leanne talks about, finding out from each of your team how they like to receive praise and recognition, that goes a long way. And as Joy said, take time for self-care. The last 20 months have really put a lot of pressure on people all around the world to really take opportunity to focus on our mental health. And we've had some amazing mental health experts on the podcast recently talk through what good self-care looks like and how to improve our own mental resources and mental well-being. So, Leanne and Joy, thank you for your thoughts on how we can be better leaders. Go check out our conversation with Leanne. Joy was not able to join us. We had a great conversation talking about strengths based leadership, which the three of us could geek out on all day long as people who love to focus on, things like Clifton strengths or standout, or how do we develop our strengths, not only in ourselves, but on our people. Next, you're going to hear from my friend Sidcote, who is another person like Heidi, who I have been connected with online and have never had a chance to meet in person until finally we get to see each other in Fort Worth. And Sid is an HR professional and has many years experience and is a international woman of mystery. I'm just kidding. She does have some international flair as she's been to some pretty cool places. And so please learn from my friend Sid. So I'm here with my friend Sidcote. And Sid, for leaders this week, what is something that they can be doing to be a better leader?
They can listen and they work where they're wanted, not where they're needed.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I love what Sid had to say about listening and then work where you're wanted. as leaders, we need to learn how to listen. As you've heard probably many of episodes talk about the importance of listening and being able to allow people to be heard and felt, and which is an important skill. So because we try too quickly to interject with our own thoughts and statements, and so we've got to be really good listeners. And the best leaders are ones who are taking the time to listen to their people. And to Sid's second part, work where you're wanted. So Sid and I have had many conversations about that exact statement, work where you're wanted. Both of us have had experiences where we've worked for places that did not want us. And it is a struggle. And to finally find a place that fits, that accepts you as an individual, your strengths, what you bring to the table, is such a rewarding feeling. And so, if you are listening to this and you're struggling with where you are at because you aren't appreciated, you don't have people in your corner, or you may have people telling you, well, you're not qualified to do this or do that. You don't have the right credentials. Yada, 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 whatever that may be. Don't work where you're not wanted. Go work where you are wanted, because it's an amazing feeling to be felt and heard and appreciated for what you bring to the table and the organization that you work for. And it really will go a long way for you as a leader to create opportunities, especially when the people behind you or ahead of you see the value in you. Next, you're going to hear from two of my favorite attorneys. Luckily, I've never had to employ them at any point, but they bring lots of knowledge. And not only are they great attorneys and great drinking bros, but they know a lot when it comes to employment law, and have helped so many corporations and individuals navigate the rules and regulations, not only to stay in compliance, but to stay ahead of the game. So that way they're not having to deal with nasty lawsuits when it comes to people. So as you'll hear from our friends Dustin Pascal and Paul Simon of Simon Pascal Law Firm. These guys are legit when it comes to best practices for employment law. So check out what they've got to say. Well, I am joined now by Dustin Pascal and Paul Simon, and we are here at the HR Southwest Conference. Dustin and Paul, for leaders this week, what is something that they can be doing to be a better leader?
I actually just gave a little speech on this, and I would say one specific thing they can do is pull out a card and write a handwritten note to a member of the team thanking them for their work on the team.
Yeah, I would say let's, put a goal of finding a good book to read, something that just excites you, not necessarily a leadership type of book, but just something that excites you, because I think we're just kind of getting into like a stage of being in a rut, and so that's a way to change that.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So as you can tell, so Dustin is also part of Texas SHRM Circles. And so I don't know if he and Jimmy planned the same message or not. But again, the theme of saying thank you is very important. And to Paul's point, finding a good book, and it goes to self-care, like Joy was talking about. We've been through a lot. And so whether finding a good book just to somehow escape the realities of the current world, or to find a good book to learn from, there's a lot of great opportunities out there for leaders to go out and find something new to read, find something that excites you. I know as a child growing up, I loved to read, but I didn't like to read the books that were forced upon me. So all the books in schools that were assigned, I would read it because it was required, but I didn't like it. I had a librarian in the elementary school who knew that I loved aviation. And so every time there was a new book on airplanes, she would let me know, and I would check out some of the same books over and over again. There was one book finally they just gave it to me because I checked it out probably a dozen times a year. And I would have it for weeks on end. She's like, other people may want this. I'm like, no, they don't. There's nobody else in the school who likes airplanes as much as I do. So, but that helped me, learn so much about the world because as a kid, reading is important. And as leaders, reading is still important because leaders are learners. Well, finally, I am going to end with our keynote speaker from HR Southwest, our friend Tony Bridwell, the Chief People Officer at Ryan and host of the Breakfast with Sis podcast and author of the book Saturday Morning Tea, How the Power of Story Changes Everything. He's got several other books that he has written. Tony is someone that I got to be on his podcast. He was the keynote speaker at a conference I hosted last year, and then immediately joined us on an episode last August. And it feels like it was just yesterday, but it was, we hadn't seen each other in over a year. And so as Tony delivered his keynote speak about the power of story, the power of words, his comment here is so powerful. And as I'm not going to give it away yet, but when I sat and listened to Tony's keynote, it was just one of the best stories I have heard in a long time. And it made me so proud to call him my friend. It was funny when I walked into, woo, almost had an earthquake there. Not really, it was just me bouncing off of the table. So walking into the big ballroom and seeing Tony over there, I walked up to Tony and it was hilarious. He sees my green lanyard. He's like, green, and just gives me this big bear hug. And it was just, he commented about how proud he was to see the growth of this podcast and all that we have done in the last year, in which is just such a huge honor to hear that from Tony. And so as we kind of close out this episode, I want you to hear this amazing piece of wisdom that comes from Tony Bridwell. Hey, so I'm here with the Tony Bridwell, and Tony, I know, the Tony Bridwell. So we're here at the HR Southwest conference, and Tony just gave an amazing keynote session.
That's so nice of you to say that.
It was phenomenal. You hit it out of the park. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
So, Tony, for our listeners this week, what is one thing that you could tell a leader to encourage them?
Wow. Well, since you didn't come to the keynote, I think if everybody would just consider one word, wonder. To live in wonder as you go throughout your week. And this is a cool word because it is to be curious and to also be in awe and amazement of what's around you. So if I was to tell a leader, hey, what's something to consider this week? Consider to be in wonder. How am I going to be curious this week, and how or what should I be looking at and be in awe of this week?
Fantastic. We'll see you later, Tony.
See ya.
Be in wonder. It is a wonder to me that so many people listen to this podcast around the world. And I am in awe of all the amazing feedback and things that come. And as leaders, we need to be in wonder of what's in front of us. How do we serve our people? Our people can do some amazing things. We can be in awe of that. And we can wonder, as in to be curious, because curiosity, while it may have killed the cat, curiosity is what drives us to be better. It's what drives us to be the leaders of tomorrow. It's that curiosity that allows us to learn. It's that curiosity that allows us to engage. So as we end this very special episode as we come to our own last call. Be in wonder, as Tony says. Find moments to be in awe and to be curious. I hope you've enjoyed this very special episode from the HR Southwest Conference, as we've got to visit with some amazing leaders and friends of the podcast. We're going to put in the show notes where you can connect with some of these if you're curious about their books, their podcasts, what they're doing. And I hope you would go check them out, because they've got some amazing things going on and great resources for leaders. I hope if you've listened to this and you've enjoyed it, please subscribe and hit that bell if you're on YouTube, so that way you know when new episodes come out. And then share this with a leader this week that needs some encouragement, needs to know, hey, how do I be a better leader this week? But as always, you can find us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on the Untapped app, where we'll leave a review of this Summer Hazy Love from Victory Brewing. And I hope you'll join us next week for another glass and conversation. The Leaders and Loggers podcast is produced, edited, and recorded by L&L Podcasts. Our theme music is Avalanche by DJ and producer Artie. Connect with us at leadersandloggers.com or submit your feedback to Kevin@leadersandloggers.com. Thank you.